I'm Dave Gardy for Cybersecurity TV from our studios here near Washington, D.C. for the September 20th Shark Tank, the Innovation AFCEA Shark Tank. And with us, of course, here is Barbara Bridges. Barbara, thanks for joining us again today.
Thank you, Dave.
We've got an exciting team of 3 companies here, and all the presenters are named Chris, so we're going to try to avoid any confusion there. But tell us a little bit about who our judges are today.
Okay, we have 4 distinguished judges. The first one on our left is Brian Ward. He's an executive architect at Unisys, executive level technology leader with 36 years of experience delivering technology innovations and strategies, solution architecture, mission critical systems, and new business growth systems. A cloud industry thought leader whose innovations and strategies increase revenues and improve profits. So Brian, thank you for being with us. Next, we have retired Colonel Lori Mo Buckhout. She's the president of CEO Corvus Consulting. Corvus is a strategic consulting and services group serving DoD electronic warfare, cyber and information warfare communities. She's got locations at the Pentagon, Crystal City, Orlando, Florida, Fort Shafter in Hawaii, and Fort Gordon in Georgia, focused on preserving our national security through experienced and professional advice and assistance. Welcome. Next, we have David Kriegman, who is the CEO of Z2B, a small consulting firm that helps companies achieve their growth goals. He is the author of Zero to a Billion, 61 Rules Entrepreneurs Need to Know to Grow a Government Consulting Business. Prior to opening up his own consulting firm, he was Division Senior VP and General Manager, Strategic Solutions Group for Jacobs Technology and many other high-profile companies. And last but not least is the famous Glenn Hernandez. Glenn is the CEO of OpEdge Solutions. Glenn is passionate about creating strategic partnerships to revolutionize and transform government and technologies to meet mission-critical objectives. He served more than 26 years in the U.S. Coast Guard and retired in July 2017. His last assignment was as the Coast Guard's CISO. So welcome our esteemed panel.
And a great panel of judges it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next company is, Barbara?
Is AttackIQ. Chris Kennedy is the Chief Information Security Officer and Vice President of Customer Success for AttackIQ. He's a 20-year operational veteran of cybersecurity, having built and run operational security programs for service, federal agencies, and financial critical infrastructure organizations. So
Okay, Chris, on your marks, get set, go.
The opportunity to be here today, distinguished judges, really excited to be here. This is my first products company. I'm a 20-year operational practitioner, and I have had a very interesting and harrowing career. My first job was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, the biggest base in the Marine Corps' first ever information system security officer. I was promoted out of that to build the Security Operations Center enterprise-wide for the Marine Corps. I transitioned to defense contracting and led the teams that built the U.S. Department of Treasury Cybersecurity Operations Program, one that was revered throughout the federal agencies as one of the most interesting and most innovative. I spent the last 6 years of my career at the largest hedge fund in the world, helping build out their risk management and their cybersecurity operations capability. And I came to AttackIQ because of a revelation that has bit me in the rear through my entire career. And it centers in the concept of security validation. I think it's important we zoom out and just look at the state of the industry today. It's 2020. I've looked back at a 20-year career of building these operational programs. We see the industry is bigger than it's ever been. We see organizational spend continuing to go up in response to emerging threats, new capabilities that they need, and breaches are continuing to happen. And we see the rates of breach actually increasing and the severity of them increasing. Well, that's a big deal. So you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? And what fundamentally is going on that's causing that? And so we have a hypothesis at AttackIQ, and our underpinning thesis is underpinned by some data points I'll give you. First and foremost, if you're familiar with the Ponemon Institute, Larry Ponemon conducted a research study. It's an industry security and technology think tank organization. And he went out and asked about 500 Fortune 500 security executives who actually own about $18 million in average in security budget. So let that sink in for a second. $18 million of budget spend taking place. Are you confident in the security capabilities you have are actually performing to the standards you expect? 53% of them said no. Wow, $18 million to spend, and I'm not confident in how that's spent. Who authorizes that? Second thing, if you read the last 2 years of the Verizon data breach incident response reports, where they have analyzed through their managed service all the different incidents that have taken place and they've responded to. One very important line states that 80% of the investigations that they conducted indicate that the company had all the technical capabilities to actually defend themselves. It broke down either in configuration or operational execution. And then I can also tell you from my own personal experiences, every incident that I've ever worked indicated that we had the basics of what we need. Something broke on the Indian execution of the incident response chain. Some security control broke down, something was missing. And so the reality is the way we're doing validation today isn't working. And that's just a fact. We're spending money without knowing if it's good money spent. And we think that's a industry-wide problem that needs to be dealt with. At the academic level, it's actually a very simple textbook case of systems engineering. If you were building an aircraft engine, imagine the amount of instrumentation and telemetry that you need to put in place of that aircraft engine to know that that system actually is performing. And you think about all the different dials and gauges that a pilot has access to know that that airplane is going to work well. We don't have anything like that in cybersecurity. We have no idea if that engine's actually working or not. That's crazy. So let's think about what we do for validation and talk about that for a second. We do audits, regulatory audits driven out of annual assessments, blue teams. We actually have checkbox-based drills where we run through and validate that we have a capability, but there's not an efficacy component of that. We just check the box that we have it. Pen tests are actually pretty good at validating security control efficacy, but they're very expensive. They're hard to repeat. They take specialized talent, and they're only as good as how you deploy them. And a lot of people don't deploy them well. So that's a real problem. And so the innovation of AttackIQ and what we want to do is it is our mission to change this paradigm across the industry. Our goal is to make enterprise security work all the time by tightening the OODA loop of security efficacy. So let me tell you a little bit about the company. AttackIQ is a Series B funded startup. We are at this point, the industry leading breach and attack simulation platform. Breach and attack simulation is a Gartner Hype Cycle quantified function. What we do is we basically have a lightweight testing harness that allows us to deploy agents with your environment and then execute specific tests in your environment that are emblematic or emulative of attacker behavior. Now you actually can validate continuously using an automated platform if the security investment you've made is actually working. We anchor to MITRE ATT&CK. We have a wide scenario library that allows you to out of the box start doing this. It's an open platform so analysts can continue to evolve and develop on it. And it's easy to deploy with a nice web UI or an open API to be able to integrate with your other workflows.
And thank you, Chris. Well, all right, we'll start the judges now.
Okay, insider threat, external threat, everything? What kind of stuff do you want to get?
So insider threat comes with a set of controls. What are your insider threat controls? Those usually fall into the identity and access management space or your data protection controls. Would you like to know if an insider can access data that he shouldn't? Why don't we create a test and use it in an automated way to determine if a user with, with a specific role or a specific set of access licensing can actually do that and run that test every day? So yes, external threat, certainly. You want to set up an instance and be able to emulate an attacker trying to bang on your front door. We can actually create specific incidents or specific activities that would be emulative of that within your environment so you can determine if that's going to happen. It's really important to understand we are a post-breach. This is about the vulnerability after the vulnerability has been exploited. What does the attacker do next? There's a whole line of security controls and capabilities that organizations should have in place. And this is the thing that we're not testing and validating well. We spend a lot of money on the pre-breach controls, the hard on the outside, soft and chewy in the middle construct of cybersecurity. And this is a way to improve the soft and chewy in the middle.
How far along is this product? I mean, you said we were in stage 2 funding. So
yeah. We are about 6 years in the making. We have experienced tremendous growth in the last 2 years. The first 3 years of the product were largely in building out the platform. We offer a SaaS solution for the back-end management or an on-prem solution to make it easy for customers to adopt it. And we've been consistently developing scenarios that allow us to conduct these tests through that entire timeline. Now we have customers across all your major verticals, from Department of Defense and the federal government to healthcare, manufacturing, finance, and commercial.
With the Department of Defense pursuing their cybersecurity maturity model certification program called CMC, they're at point 4 in their revision of their framework. It encompasses multiple standards and frameworks to assess organizations, right, to try and get away from the snapshot in time understanding of their infrastructure and trying to go to more consistent understanding of where their vulnerabilities. I think opportunity here is to, once they've identified the vulnerabilities and implemented remediations, AttackIQ could come in and assess how well those solutions can readily protect the enterprise and provide that feedback to the consumers, because these are small businesses that don't have a lot of resources and infrastructure support. And so if you're able to do that at a very cost-effective way, whether it's the Defense Contracting Management Authority that's going to be managing this, right, it could be a value add to the department.
We see a parallel use case of that already taking place within our customer population, where we've got manufacturing institutions that do a lot of merger and acquisition. And so as part of the principles of how they conduct that merger and acquisition assessment, they want to use AttackIQ to validate the security posture of the organization before onboarding them into their environment. And so I think that's very much in parallel of how we would apply within the Department of Defense.
Great.
Another really important part about the DoD that we're finding is very interesting is that we're finding it's a great training opportunity. Where I use a lexicon with the Army soldiers we're working with. We're cyber opposition force. And so we can emulate that attacker activity to make sure that soldier knows what to do and how to respond.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about, is a persistent cyber training environment that the Army and DoD is working on right now. That's a very interesting component of that.
It is. We're actually participating in Cyber Blitz right now as an exercise across DoD, where we're actually using our product to be able to stimulate the environment to do exactly that.
That's fascinating. One area I'm curious about is your integration with operations. So there's a lot of products out there that will go do analysis on log files and things like that. And what you're talking about is actually simulating an attack into an operational environment. How do you coordinate with all the various entities that are doing post-attack analysis to be sure that what you're doing is not skewing their results and that everything is coordinated appropriately?
A great question, and it's within the use case of what we do. First, it depends on what do you want to do. Do you want to test those operational analysts to make sure they actually would see? A major use case within the security ecosystem is the SIM platform actually consuming all these logs? If we go out and execute an adversarial emulation, and those logs don't make it to the analyst because of a break in the operational ecosystem, well, that analyst doesn't have a chance. And so, what lens do you want to take in deploying this product? Do you want to take it as a security control validation lens and making sure the ecosystem works? Do you want to use it as a way to test the analyst to make sure he knows what he's doing? He or she knows what he's doing. Do you want to use it as a way to make sure that you can train? Or do you want to actually use it as a quiet way? We have within the technology ability to suppress alerts so we don't blow up the SOC when we run an emulation if that's the outcome that you want.
And time.
All right.
Excellent. Can we go to a wide shot real quick, Matt, back there? Just want to see. Yes, he's wearing a kilt.
The kilt is actually very important. Sorry to steal extra airtime. I designed this and had it made for the company because it represents our corporate mission. If you're familiar with the blue, red, and purple team concept, the blue teams, the red teams, and the purple teams working together, the white thread of the ethos of the white hat hacker finding the problem before the bad guy or gal does. And then the silver represents the AttackIQ platform and tying all those teams together effectively.
Well, it is the only company that has its own kilt.
I know, right?
I would say that looks much better as a kilt than a pair of pants. I want you to know.
Thanks.
I like that he's the only other guy person wearing a dress up here. So
Right
that's
on.
all good, man.
Innovation abound.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. An excellent presentation, Chris Kennedy from AttackIQ. Barbara, again, second time in a row, we've got three close close presentations here. Every one of them was excellent. So what we're going to do now is allow the judges to figure this out. It was going to be the next 10 minutes. We have two companies that are going to be interviewed. The company is FlowLab. These are our sponsors. An interesting solution for PTSD solutions and other things. Tune into this one. This is a good one. And also a former contestant here at the Shark Tank, Incatech, Liliana Friedman, who's CEO. So we'll go to those videos now, and we'll be back with the decision shortly. All right, we're back here live. It's 3:53 Eastern here at the Shark Tank Innovation Shark Tank with AFCEA, and our judges needed every minute of those 10 minutes to come to a decision. This is a very close decision. So we're going to go to, I believe, the MC for the judges, which is Colonel Lori Moore-Buckout. Lori, what's the story?
Okay, this was tough. So not only were they all named Chris, so that was the first different, okay, but they all just had extraordinary and really interesting ideas. And one guy had a skirt, so we had to get caught up in that. Okay, so first, they all had great market knowledge. They all knew their client, they know the market, and we were all real excited about that. Second, they all had viable revenue streams. You know, number one in business is, does your client have money? So they were all about that. Third, they all identified legitimate gaps, and they all found ways to address it. So there were no ifs, ands, or buts, all very effective and exciting companies. We did spend down to the wire deciding who, because they were all so great. So it really came down to the degree of innovation maturity. Was it near term or long term? So after wrestling with that, we have decided that AttackIQ with Chris Kennedy was going to be our number one, because it was addressing a very near-term problem. They were being able to attack it right now. We actually saw some real-time examples we're all very familiar with, so just great. But we had to give honorable mention. Of course, everyone did great, but honorable mention to Phosphorus and their exciting ability to secure the Internet of Things. There's so much to do there. We had to discuss a little bit about, hey, can you do it now? I think they're definitely we think they're definitely making big strides in addressing it, but it is a huge problem. And these are the only ones we've seen really going after it so well. So we gave them honorable mention as the company to watch.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, everybody. We're going to have Chris Kennedy come up on stage and grab his hardware. And the judges.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Here
Enjoyed
you
Thank you.
go.
Thank
Here
you.
you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
You want to come say a few words? And we'll be selling kilts online at AFCEA. AFCEA kilts, I'm sure.
With the AFCEA logo on it.
Well, this really means a lot to me. You know, as a practitioner for 20 years, and the realization of why I joined AttackIQ is to address this problem. And so the fact that the panel of judges in the community and our sales cycles are recognizing the value of what we provide is emblematic of why this is so important for us to do. And I think we actually have an opportunity to meaningfully move the bar in terms of what it means for a security program to be effective if folks will embrace continuous security validation using automation platforms like AttackIQ to do so.
Excellent. Well, congratulations again, Chris. Thank you for joining us again for this. So there you have it, Barbara. Another one in the can.